Before this week's video begins, I just want to say that I added coffee membership, so if you want to check that out, link will be in the description below. Heyo everyone, Misha B. Barkin here. So, yeah, this is gonna be a controversial one. I'm warning you ahead of time, this isn't a factual or researched video like the last few weeks, cause frankly I need a break from that. This is just my thoughts and opinions, and feel free to drop yours below as well. As uncomfortable as it may be to have conversations about aspects of the community such as this, I feel it's important to open that avenue of dialogue so we may get other sides and opinions from many walks of life. So, you've read the title. Today's topic is politics in the furry community. Has it become too political? Is it just fine? And what happens to a community if it stays strictly apolitical? Find out my thoughts in the rest of this video. Politics is a stressful subject. I don't want to say it's boring due to its importance, but I mean, man, it's hard to keep up with some of it. That being said, its necessity in life isn't really debatable. It's unfortunate, but some people's way of life depends on a law or bill being passed or denied. Politics is, unfortunately, everywhere, and affects all of us, whether you directly realize it or not. This ties into the furry community because, well, we are people. Becoming a furry doesn't negate the fact that we're humans, as much as some of you would like it to. Not to mention, the furry community has a heavy basing in art, which has been and continues to be used as a political tool in today's world. Let's take an easy example. Rage Against the Machine. Remember them? They weren't writing music against their dishwasher. A lot, if not all of their music is heavily politically charged. Another musical example is actually our classical fellow Shostakovich, who wrote his Symphony 9 in E-flat major as more of a joke to mock Joseph Stalin and the Russian country as a whole, of which he was commissioned by to write music for. Music is a great way to either subtly take jabs at those in power or those on the other side of the political spectrum you may not agree with. On the art side of things, I'm sure we've all seen those personas tearing through a Blue Lives Matter flag on Twitter or possibly other sites. I recently found the artist's page and, well, we see them everywhere because there's 300 separate commissions like this. Mad props to the artist, as 300 commissions is an unreal number, so congrats. There are many more examples of people using art as a vessel to get their political points across and out there, and the furry community is no stranger to that idea. Now, what about the apolitical side? If politics stress you out, then that's okay, just ignore it. Pretend it's not there, especially if it doesn't affect you. When I first joined the community, this was honestly my original mindset, as I'm sure it was many other people's as well. I mean, politics has become sort of a competition on who can shit on the other side more, oftentimes resorting to slander and name-calling rather than debating actual topics. Even our political leaders spend their free time calling each other names rather than doing what they can to save a failing country. For fuck's sake, we just want healthcare. So, with politics being so hostile, it isn't really a stretch to see why people would want to keep it out of furry, as the community is mostly, or it tries to be, a positive space. I can understand why people hold this point of view, even though I personally disagree with it nowadays, as politics has a sort of dark cloud above it, so why not cut it out? I mean, this is a community of fluffy animals, right? Why not ignore politics while you're in the furry community, ooh-woo? That wasn't in the script, that was ad-lib, and I can't believe I just did that. Well, we kind of have an example of this happening already. The brony fandom. What the fuck? If you don't already know, I personally enjoy the show, but I wouldn't really consider myself part of the brony fandom, as it's just not my thing, I guess. The fandom seems to be extremely hyper-fixated on proving how manly they are, even though they like ponies, and liking ponies is manly. Grrr.
Level muscles! Yeah!
That's just not my thing. Those who know me know I'm not manly, and to be honest, I'm a bit more feminine than the typical guy, so this whole being a man thing really didn't vibe with me. But that's not why I bring it up. I bring it up because for nearly the entirety of the brony fandom's biggest years, politics and such weren't brought up nearly at all, which on the surface sounds really nice. Hell yeah, no politics, no conflicts over political opinions, no problems, right? This causes some problems down the road, as we're seeing now. People like Ethereum Apex rose to prominence in the community and was given a large platform, and he has become more vocal in his political leanings, and it wasn't exactly an equality for all stance. Think along the lines of anti-mask, pro-Trump, and transphobic, basically the brony version of Diesel Raccoon, who, by the way, ripped his mask clean off and is back to the way he was, so much for changing. They've actually conversed in the past, but Ethereum is taking a Twitter break and deleted all their tweets. Ethereum is just one example. As I've stated a few videos ago, there's that Nazi pony OC that just exists and no one batted an eye? The brony fandom's kinda in a bad spot in terms of their reputation and personnel, and while they're trying to improve their standing, it's got a long way to go. What's interesting is the community has started dribbling politics into its everyday interactions, and it's actually helping to improve the community as a whole, at least in my opinion. Some of the more prominent alt-right members who once held large platforms are starting to lose those, as their awful views become more obvious and frowned upon, and people begin to realize that, hey, this person's views are kinda awful. I don't feel comfortable with them having this big of a following. This seems like a good time to mention. Political disagreements are 100% okay. Just because two people may disagree on politics doesn't mean one needs to cancel the other. But if your views include thinking lesser of a group of people, be it because of a race, gender, or sexuality, or you actively support those who hold these views, then you don't deserve to thrive in this community or any other ones. The brony fandom starting on 4chan and thus being an apolitical plateau where alt-right people were able to thrive really shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Anyways, let's get back to our community, shall we? The furry community has always had a political side within it, and likely always will, but why? Why is this a thing? Well, the furry community has always been a place for people who fall into the LGBT community, and unfortunately the LGBT community has always had to fight for their rights to just simply exist. There's been countless laws and bills that have been attempted that directly affect this community. For decades, gay and lesbian people had to fight for their right to marry, finally achieving this goal in 2015. Even then, gay people are still treated awfully in mostly red states, with many of them having to stay in the closet. Now we're seeing trans people reach for the same rights and equality, but unfortunately this group is much more targeted by laws and bills these days. Many states in the US alone try to pass laws that directly harm trans individuals, and these bills get heavily pushed by politicians and other leaders in this country, much to the dismay of trans people just simply trying to be happy. I also haven't mentioned race yet, as there are plenty of people who think lesser of minority groups due to the color of their skin. Wonder who that could be. This community is full of people who are directly affected by these bills being debated and passed every day, and unfortunately for many, this doesn't stop just because they take on a persona. I used to be in the mindset that furry was an escape from reality, but as time went on I began to realize that I was lucky. Many in the community don't have this luxury. So while you may not be affected by these political debates happening daily, please remember that many in this community are, and that's why they speak so much about it within this community. But is it too political? Maybe a little bit? Let me explain. Politics will always be in this community, and that will simply never change. This is absolutely fine, and I will not disagree with this. However, people don't really have to bring up politics and such 24/7. Don't be politically ignorant, but on the same coin, don't be overly political towards everyone you talk to on Twitter, especially furry Twitter. Finding a balance between the two is a great idea and will keep you sane. Too much political talk, especially on the internet, is really not good for your mental health, as it's almost certainly like talking to a brick wall. Posting and retweeting political issues is absolutely valid and fine, but constantly debating and replying to people on opposing sides of the political spectrum will only lead to anger towards random people online that you don't even know. Unless they're anti-maskers, then flame the fuck out of them. Anyways, yeah, politics will never leave the community, but only focusing on politics in the community will lead to a general negative time and a negative view on the community as a whole. So, we're to the end of the video. Please remember that this is merely my opinion, and this isn't a set-in-stone factual video. If you disagree, feel free to respectfully say why in the comments. I'm gonna be honest guys, I never know how to end videos like this.